Oh, poor Barbara. You've been stood up.
It's okay. We should have done this during the week. He always goes out of town on the weekends.
Before it became one of NBC's Saturday night staples, Empty Nest almost never existed as we know it. Its original cast was completely torched. A beloved co-star was secretly a stunt dog, and one guest star died just days after his episode aired. The show hid more chaos behind the scenes than Harry Weston ever faced at his pediatric practice. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Empty Nest. Fact 1. The original cast was completely scrapped.
It's just that I have this
function. I know. Well, your function will have to wait for his function.
Before Empty Nest became the show that millions of viewers tuned into every Saturday night, it went through a complete and total overhaul, one that scrapped virtually everything audiences first saw and started nearly from scratch. The story begins on May 16, 1987, when an episode of The Golden Girls titled Empty Nests aired as the Season 2 finale. The episode was not a regular Golden Girls story. It was what television insiders call a backdoor pilot, meaning it was designed to secretly introduce a potential spin-off series within the framework of an already popular show, hoping audiences would warm up to the new characters without realizing they were watching a preview of something entirely different. The concept centered on a middle-aged couple named George and Renee Corliss, played by Paul Dooley and Rita Moreno. They were introduced as neighbors of the Golden Girls, dealing with what the show's creator, Susan Harris, described as empty nest syndrome, that feeling of loneliness and loss of purpose that comes when grown children leave home. Renee's brother Chuck, played by Jeffrey Lewis, was written as a man with multiple personalities who occasionally transformed into a cheerful neighborhood handyman. Their mooching neighbor Oliver, played by David Leisure, also appeared as part of the ensemble. The episode landed badly with audiences. Viewers found the characters difficult to connect with, and NBC decided the concept as originally written was not strong enough to carry its own series. Even fans of the Golden Girls were frustrated, noting that the regular cast barely appeared in their own season finale. Harris later admitted she worried that a married couple complaining about loneliness would simply become repetitive and stale week after week. So producers made a sweeping decision. They scrapped the Corliss family entirely, rebuilt the premise around a widowed doctor and his adult daughters, and recast almost every single role. The name of the show stayed. Almost nothing else did. Fact 2. Rita Moreno called the pilot humiliating.
Another disaster. My life is filled with these things. Pilots and I do not get along.
When Rita Moreno agreed to star in the backdoor pilot for what would eventually become Empty Nest, she had every reason to expect a smooth experience. She was already a highly accomplished actress, a Tony Award and Emmy Award winner, and the pilot was written by Susan Harris, who had created The Golden Girls. What happened instead became, by Moreno's own description, one of the most embarrassing experiences of her professional life. The problem started before cameras even rolled. Harris was seriously ill during the week of production and could not be on set to do the rewrites the script clearly needed. Other writers were brought in to fix it, and according to Moreno, those rewrites never stopped coming. Every single day, the character of Renee Corliss would shift in a different direction. What she wanted, how she spoke, what motivated her, all of it kept changing from one draft to the next. By the time the cast stood in front of a studio audience to actually perform the episode, Moreno said she could not remember a single line from the original script because the character's attitude and personality had been rewritten so many different times. She described it in an interview with the Archive of American Television as an experience of total disorientation. Making it worse was the performance itself. The cast reportedly had to film the episode in front of a live studio audience approximately 15 times before they had something usable. 15 takes in front of an audience is an extraordinary number, and Moreno made clear that the whole experience left her rattled. She later called the finished product a very, very bad show, and said that the episode was essentially a disaster from beginning to end, one she has never looked back on with any fondness. Fact 3. One actor survived the reboot. With a new name,
Harry, we're not 25. Why don't we get married?
when NBC and the producers of Empty Nest decided to tear down the original Corliss family concept and rebuild it entirely with a new cast and new characters, they made one exception. A single actor from the failed 1987 pilot was allowed to carry over into the new version of the show, although even his character was given a fresh identity to go along with the fresh start. That actor was David Leisure, who had played a character called Oliver in the original pilot. Oliver was written as a test pilot who lived nearby and had a habit of mooching off his neighbors. When the show was retooled and relaunched in 1988 with Richard Mulligan at the center, Leisure's character survived the transition but was renamed Charlie Dietz and given a completely different occupation. Instead of a test pilot, Charlie was now a cruise ship worker, someone with a built-in reason to drift in and out of the Weston household whenever the story called for it. The core personality traits that made the character recognizable did survive the reboot. Charlie was still a womanizer, still an uninvited presence in his neighbor's home, and still someone who treated other people's kitchens and refrigerators as his own. The dynamic of the irritating but oddly lovable neighbor translated cleanly from Oliver to Charlie, even if the name and the job description did not. Leisure ended up being one of the most consistent cast members on the entire series, staying with the show all 7 seasons and appearing in nearly every episode. Of all the pieces from the original pilot that were considered too flawed to keep, the annoying neighbor turned out to be the one element that production genuinely could not do without. Fact 4. Mulligan was cast because of friendship, not audition.
As long as they get what they want.
Those are the guys I date, Daddy.
For most actors hoping to land the lead role in a major network sitcom, the road to being cast involves an extensive audition process. Reading for casting directors, testing for network executives, competing against other actors in the room. Richard Mulligan's path to playing Dr. Harry Weston on Empty Nest looked considerably different from that. Mulligan got the role primarily because of the relationships he had already built with the people making the show. The series was produced by Witt/Thomas/Harris Productions, a team consisting of Paul Younger-Witt, Tony Thomas, and Susan Harris. All 3 had worked closely with Mulligan years earlier on Soap, the satirical sitcom that ran on ABC from 1977 to 1981. Mulligan had played Bert 81. Mulligan had played Bert Campbell, one of the leads on that show, and it was his first significant exposure to television. The experience forged a genuine professional bond between Mulligan and the 3 producers. When Harris and her partners were rebuilding Empty Nest after the failed pilot, they turned to someone they already trusted. There was no need to put Mulligan through the uncertainty of an open audition process because everyone at the production company had already seen exactly what he could do over the course of 4 years on Soap. They knew his range, his timing, and his ability to carry a weekly comedy series. Mulligan proved the instinct correct. He won both an Emmy Award and a Golden Globe Award for Best Lead Actor in a comedy series for his work on Empty Nest in 1989, just 1 year after the show debuted. It turned out that casting someone because of friendship and shared history was not a shortcut. It was a straight line to the right person for the role. Fact 5. 2 strangers were actually family on another show.
I have an announcement to make.
At least I had a husband.
Girls, listen.
It was just a joke, Carol.
Well, I'm sick of your jokes, Barbara.
Come on, play nice, girl.
When viewers watched the first episode of Empty Nest in the fall of 1988, they met Dr. Harry Weston and his daughter Carol for what appeared to be the first time. On screen, the 2 characters were a recently widowed pediatrician and his neurotic, high-strung eldest daughter navigating a new version of family life under the same roof. What many viewers did not know was that the actors playing those roles, Richard Mulligan and Dinah Manoff, had actually played family members before, in a completely different show, more than a decade earlier. Both Mulligan and Manoff had appeared in Soap, the satirical comedy created by Susan Harris that aired on ABC from 1977 to 1981. In that show, they played entirely different characters who also happened to be connected by family. Mulligan played Bert Campbell, a man who became a stepfather, and Manoff played Elaine Lefkowitz, who was connected to the Campbell family through marriage. The relationship between their two characters in Soap put them in an on-screen father-in-law and daughter-in-law dynamic, which made their later pairing as actual father and daughter on Empty Nest feel like a natural, familiar extension of a chemistry the producers already knew worked. It was no coincidence. Susan Harris created both shows, and Witt/Thomas/Harris Productions had worked with both actors before. When Harris rebuilt Empty Nest around a widowed father and his daughters, casting Mulligan in the lead was an obvious starting point, and Manoff was a known quantity alongside him. The father-daughter pairing viewers saw on Empty Nest was, in one sense, a more direct version of the family connection that had already been tested and proven on Soap years before. Fact 6. Dreyfuss had a secret stunt double. His own brother.
Dreyfuss, I know you have to go. You have not been out since last night.
One of the most beloved characters on Empty Nest, never spoke a single line of dialogue, never wore a costume, and never needed to learn a script. Dreyfuss, the large, lovably lazy dog belonging to Dr. Harry Weston, became as essential to the show's identity as any of the human cast members. But what most viewers watching at home never realized was that the dog they thought they were watching was not always the same dog at all. The animal who primarily played Dreyfuss was a dog named Bear, a St. Bernard and Golden Retriever mix who was born in 1986 and lived on the show from its debut through most of its run. Bear was well suited to playing the part of a gentle, low-energy family pet. His laid-back disposition made him easy to work with on set during scenes where Dreyfuss was simply lounging around or reacting to the family. The problem was that Bear was too relaxed for scenes that required actual movement and energy. Whenever a scene called for Dreyfuss to run, play, or perform any physically active action, Bear was not the dog the production team would reach for. Instead, they called in Bear's brother, a dog named Julio. Julio had the same basic look as Bear, but was significantly more energetic and enthusiastic, which made him the better choice whenever the camera needed Dreyfuss to be in motion. Most notably, Julio was the dog running alongside Richard Mulligan in the show's famous opening credit sequence during the earlier seasons. Audiences assumed they were watching one continuous character, and they were, just played by two brothers dividing the role based on how much energy the scene required. Fact 7. Dinah Manoff was furious about being upstaged by the dog.
An astronaut, I bet he's smart.
Oh, and he looks strong. I think he's athletic. Barbara, dear, I really think he's more suited to me.
Empty Nest had a cast full of talented, experienced performers, and at the center of that cast was Dinah Manoff, who played Harry Weston, one of the most endearingly neurotic characters on American television in the late 1980s and early 90s. Manoff was a Tony Award winner with a rich stage and film career long before she ever stepped foot on the Empty Nest set. So when she began to notice that the majority of questions she was getting from fans and friends were not about her performance or her character, but about the dog, her patience wore thin fairly quickly. In an interview with TV Guide in 1989, Manoff did not hide her frustration. She described a pattern that had become impossible to ignore, where people who told her they loved the show would immediately follow that up by asking what it was like to work with Dreyfuss. Friends, co-workers, people she bumped into, all of them wanted to talk about the dog. She said she had grown tired of hearing about the animal and made clear that the level of attention Dreyfuss was receiving from the public felt disproportionate to his actual contribution to the show. She questioned, in her characteristically sharp way, why a St. Bernard and Golden Retriever mix had become the focal point of so much conversation about a show that had human beings delivering jokes and carrying storylines every week. What makes the comment even more telling is that Manoff was by no means dismissive of the dog's popularity as a cold business matter. She understood how audiences worked. She was simply, and quite openly, annoyed by it, which ironically made for one of the most quotable and memorable things any cast member of Empty Nest ever said in a press interview. Fact 8. The failed pilot set became the show's set.
Dear, sweet, brave, rejected Barbara.
Carol, quit. You won.
When NBC and the producers of Empty Nest made the decision to scrap the original Corliss family concept and build an entirely new show around a different set of characters, it was a sweeping overhaul in almost every sense. New lead actors, new character names, a new central family, a new dramatic premise. The retooled version that debuted in October of 1988 had so little in common with the failed 1987 pilot that audiences watching the new show would have had almost no reason to connect the two. Almost no reason, that is, if they had been paying very close attention to the interior of the Weston family home. As it turns out, the physical set that served as the Corliss household in the rejected pilot episode was never torn down and replaced. When production on the real Empty Nest began, the same interior set, the same walls, the same layout, the same basic design of the living space was kept and repurposed as the Weston residence. The home that viewers watched George and Renee Corliss move through in that failed season finale of The Golden Girls in May of 1987 was quietly transformed into the home that Dr. Harry Weston and his daughters would inhabit for the next 7 years. The only meaningful change was that the establishing shot used for exterior footage was switched out. A different house was shown on the outside, giving the impression of a new location, while the interior remained the same physical space that had appeared in an episode most viewers would rather forget. It is one of those small, practical pieces of television production history that tends to get overlooked entirely, but it means that in a very literal sense, a show that failed left a tangible piece of itself behind inside the show that replaced it. Fact 9. Christy McNichol's series finale appearance was her last role. Ever
is fun for someone young because it's exciting, but that's not why I do what I do.
Christy McNichol was, by the time she joined Empty Nest in 1988, already a seasoned and highly celebrated actress. She had won 2 Emmy Awards as a teenager for her role on the drama series Family in the late 1970s, and she had built a film career that included well-received performances throughout the early 80s. Playing Barbara Weston, the confident and capable younger daughter on Empty Nest, was meant to be her return to steady television work after a few years of personal difficulty. But something was quietly wrong throughout her years on the show. By her own account, McNichol had been battling serious mental health challenges for some time, and those challenges became impossible to manage while maintaining the demands of a weekly network sitcom. In 1992, midway through the 5th season of Empty Nest, she left the series after appearing in only the first 5 episodes of that year. The official explanation at the time was vague, and it would be years before the full picture became clear. McNichol was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and she later spoke openly about how the illness had made it impossible for her to continue. In a statement from 1995, she explained that she had been forced to choose between continuing the show and simply not being well. It was, she said, the hardest decision she had ever made. She did return for the final episode of Empty Nest in 1995, giving fans of the show a chance to see Barbara Weston one last time. That appearance turned out to be her final on-screen acting role. She later did voice work for 2 animated series in the late 1990s, before officially retiring from acting in 2001, choosing to step away entirely and focus on her personal well-being. Fact 10. a guest star died. 4 days after his episode aired.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Dr. Brewster.
The voice we could work on.
Among all the memorable moments in Empty Nest's 7-season run, few carry the weight of a single guest appearance that aired in the winter of 1991. The episode was titled The Mentor, and it featured a legendary figure from the golden age of American television making what would turn out to be his final acting appearance anywhere. Danny Thomas had been one of the most beloved figures in television history. He created and starred in Make Room for Daddy, which later became The Danny Thomas Show, a family comedy that ran for more than a decade on ABC and CBS. Beyond performing, he had been a powerful producer behind several major shows, and outside of entertainment entirely, he was the founder of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, an institution he had dedicated much of his life to building and supporting. The connection to Empty Nest was personal. Tony Thomas, one of the show's executive producers and a partner in Thomas/Harris Productions, was Danny Thomas's son. In the episode that aired on February 2, 1991, Danny appeared as a veteran physician who had once mentored Dr. Harry Weston, the character played by Richard Mulligan. It was a warm, fitting role for a man of his stature, and by all accounts he appeared to be in good health at the time of filming. 4 days after the episode aired, on February 6, 1991, Danny Thomas suffered a heart attack at his Beverly Hills home and was pronounced dead at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. He was 79 years old. The Empty Nest episode in which he appeared stands as the final acting credit of his entire career, a guest appearance on his own son's show that no one at the time could have known would be his last. Fact 11. Park Overall spent her breaks roller skating in the parking lot.
Laverne, I don't want to hear about this.
I'll give you a hint. He's got dates every night this week.
Television production is, for the most part, a waiting game. Between scenes, between setups, between takes, actors spend considerable stretches of time simply standing by and waiting for the next moment they are needed in front of the camera. Some actors run lines, some retreat to their dressing rooms, some scroll through whatever entertainment is available. Park Overall, who played the lovably country-accented nurse Laverne Todd on Empty Nest for all 7 seasons of the show, found a rather different way to fill those stretches of downtime. According to Rue McClanahan, who regularly appeared on Empty Nest as her Golden Girls character Blanche Devereaux, and therefore spent time on the same production lot, Overall had a habit of lacing up roller skates during her breaks between scenes and taking to the parking lot outside the production building. Not a gym, not a designated recreation area, just the parking lot, which she apparently treated as her own private skating rink whenever the schedule gave her the opportunity. The image of a cast member of a primetime network sitcom gliding around a parking lot in roller skates between scenes is an unusual one, but it tracks with what people who worked around Overall have generally described as her personality: warm, unpretentious, and largely unconcerned with maintaining any particular image of glamour or professionalism in the conventional sense. She was there to do the work, and when the work paused, she did what she felt like doing. Park Overall was nominated 3 times for a Golden Globe Award for her performance as Laverne during the show's run. Off camera, apparently, she was the one most likely to be found rolling around outside while everyone else waited indoors. Fact 12. The spin-off eventually outrated its own parent show.
Honey, I'm sorry.
Oh, don't be. It was one of my better dates.
When Empty Nest debuted in October of 1988, it had what any new sitcom would consider a dream situation built in from the start. The show aired on NBC's Saturday night lineup at 9:30 in the evening, placed immediately after The Golden Girls. At that point, one of the most watched programs on American television. Simply by occupying that time slot, Empty Nest was guaranteed an enormous built-in audience of viewers who were already settled in and comfortable on the couch. What was less certain was whether those viewers would stick around because they genuinely liked the new show, or simply because changing the channel required more effort than staying put. The answer became clear fairly quickly. Empty Nest proved itself as a show that earned its audience, rather than just inheriting one. For its first 3 seasons, it was consistently one of the top 10 most watched programs on all of American television. Its ratings were strong enough to make it one of NBC's flagship comedies, not merely a beneficiary of a favorable time slot. What eventually happened was something even more unexpected. As the years went on and both shows continued to air, Empty Nest began to overtake The Golden Girls in total viewership. The spin-off was pulling in more weekly viewers than the parent series that had given it life and lent it its initial audience. Spin-offs eclipsing the original shows they came from is a rare occurrence in television, and it is rarer still when the spin-off in question began its existence as the less established show in a 2-show programming block. Empty Nest managed to go from the show that followed The Golden Girls to the show that outperformed it, a distinction that belongs to very few television spin-offs in the history of the medium. Fact 13. Dinah Manoff became a director on her own show.
See, I've always been afraid of the unknown, of taking risks. That is the one thing I admire about Barbara.
Most actors who land a starring role in a long-running network sitcom spend the bulk of their time focused entirely on the job of performing, memorizing dialogue, showing up to rehearsals, hitting marks, and delivering the scenes that the writers have put on the page. A smaller number, over time, develop an interest in the production side of television and begin to seek out opportunities to step behind the camera. Dinah Manoff fell firmly into that second group. Beginning in the 5th season of Empty Nest, Manoff started directing episodes of the very show she was starring in. She would continue doing so through the 6th and 7th seasons, ultimately directing a total of 7 episodes by the time the series wrapped up in 1995. The episodes she directed include installments titled Why Do Fools Fall in Love?, Read All About It, Brotherly Shove, Just for Laughs, Feelings, Whoa, 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 Feelings, Stand By Your Man, and My Pal Valley Val. In each of those cases, Manoff took on the responsibility of guiding the performances of her fellow cast members, coordinating with the crew, and shaping how a finished episode would look and feel, while still stepping in front of the camera herself to play Harry Weston in the same episode. The dual role of actor and director on the same production is not unheard of, but it requires an unusual level of mental flexibility. You have to be simultaneously inside a performance and outside of it, which are fundamentally different ways of engaging with a scene. Manoff had earlier won a Dramalog Award for directing a stage play, so she arrived at this with real directorial experience already behind her, making her transition behind the camera on Empty Nest a genuine creative accomplishment rather than just a cast member trying something new. Fact 14. A Broadway musical name drops the show. And Manoff went to see it.
I have this Tootsie Pop, but I want you to have that medicine too because you're sick, baby, and it's going to make you better.
Broadway musicals reference a lot of things: pop culture, movies, television, famous personalities. But it is genuinely unusual for a primetime network sitcom from the late 1980s to pop up in the middle of a song on the Broadway stage. Empty Nest managed to pull that off, courtesy of a self-aware musical that arrived in New York in 2008. The show in question is called Title of Show, and yes, that is actually the name of it, written with brackets included as part of the title. The musical tells the story of 2 aspiring writers, played by the show's real-life creators, Jeff Bowen and Hunter Bell, who decide to write a musical in 3 weeks to enter it into a New York theater festival. The plot is essentially autobiographical, documenting the actual creation of the show the audience is watching, and it is loaded with references to theater culture, ambition, and the anxiety of trying to make it in a competitive industry. In a song called Two Nobodies in New York, the two characters dream out loud about getting celebrities involved in their show, and during that fantasy sequence, they bring up Dinah Manoff by name. One character suggests getting that woman who was on Empty Nest. The other responds enthusiastically by confirming it is Dinah Manoff, and both immediately recall that she was also in Grease and in the Broadway musical Leader of the Pack. The moment is brief but genuine in its affection. Manoff learned about the reference and went to see the show herself during its Broadway run. She was so taken by it that she recorded a video testimonial with the cast, which was posted to the production's YouTube page. An actress getting name-checked in a Broadway show and then showing up to celebrate it in person is a remarkable little story, entirely on its own. Fact 15, a Lifetime documentary. Got Estelle Getty's timeline completely wrong.
Because we care about you.
No matter what you say, I'm going back to work.
Estelle Getty is one of the most beloved figures in the history of Empty Nest, and for good reason. After the cancellation of The Golden Palace, the short-lived spin-off of The Golden Girls that aired on CBS, Getty reprised her iconic role as Sophia Petrillo and joined the cast of Empty Nest for its final 2 seasons, bringing an enormous amount of warmth and comic energy to the show during a period when it had already lost several key cast members. Her involvement with Empty Nest began when she signed on in 1993 for Season 6, after both The Golden Girls and The Golden Palace had already come to an end. She remained through the series finale in 1995. It was a clean, sequential timeline. One show ended, another ended, and then she moved into a third. In 2001, Lifetime aired an episode of its biographical documentary series, Intimate Portrait, focused on Getty. The documentary covered her life and career in some detail, but somewhere in the telling, the producers made a factual error about how her involvement with Empty Nest actually worked. The documentary implied that she had been asked to work on both Empty Nest and The Golden Girls simultaneously, as though she were doing double duty between 2 active shows running at the same time. That was simply not how it happened. The Golden Girls ended in 1992. The Golden Palace followed and was canceled after 1 season in 1993. Only after all of that did Getty join Empty Nest. The 2 shows she appeared in as a series regular never actually overlapped. For fans of Empty Nest who knew the history well, the error in the documentary was immediately noticeable. A small but concrete mistake in an otherwise loving tribute to one of television's great character actresses.